Broadcasting for Big 12 Football Media Days in Frisco, Texas. The Kansas Jayhawks are here, and the players that are here today, well, we knew about the majority of them going into today, but filling in for one individual. Topeka's own DeShawn Hanika in the house, tied in for the Kansas Jayhawks. DeShawn, great to see you. Like I was telling you off there, we go back to Topeka, man. So I remember back then, I'm looking at DeShawn. I'm like, man, this guy could play some basketball.
Yeah.
And here you are now going into your final season as a tight end for Kansas.
Yep.
Insane. Made the right choice. Happy with the football aspect compared to the basketball aspect. I feel like you probably could still ball a little bit out there on the rec center. But, I'm curious about your path, because back then I remember just watching you, just thinking, man, this guy's got all the potential in the world. And when you have the option to go basketball or football, it's like, man, I don't really know, but football seems to be the good fit right now.
Football was definitely the right choice. With the success that I've had on and off the field, I was saying earlier that I was a basketball kid my whole life. I love basketball. If you asked me, I was going to the NBA. My mom, she played basketball, big basketball fan herself, and I was going to be the next Michael Jordan. And I had a couple small Division I offers to play basketball. I got those early, and then I still remember going to late night at the Fog at KU, and a little preferred walk on. I was with one of my good friends, Zach Harvey, who was one of the top players in the country, and I walk in the locker room, and I walk around Topeka. I'm a pretty big guy. And I walk in there, and I forget his name, but they had the number one power forward or small forward in the country there, and he was like 6'9", 6'8", and I was like, yeah. I got in the car and called my parents. I said, you know what, I think football is going to be the way to go, because I just don't match up well out here.
Don't match up well out here. Well, man, what a journey it really has been. Of course, you didn't go straight to Kansas. You had a very unique path to get to Lawrence, too. You went to Ames, played at Iowa State. You end up back in Kansas, and then your world comes just crashing down when you suffer an injury in the spring, and then you're out for an entire season. And now you're back. You look healthy, which is great. Knock on wood. Let's keep it that way. Knock on wood. What was last season like for you?
I mean, last season it was tough. I mean, if I were to sit here and tell you that it wasn't, I'd be lying to you. And just coming back home and being so excited to play back home, and in front of all my friends and all my family and the great people of the state of Kansas, and trying to do something that's never been done at this university, and to have that just kind of taken away from you at that time. But I had a great supporting cast around me. From the trainers to Coach Leipold, and my wife, who was just an absolute rock star. It happened, and she was like, okay, like, you can be sad, you can be depressed for about 48 hours, and then once that 48 hours was up, she was on me, and the rehab started right then and there. And I love to joke around with the trainers and say that I'm one of the worst people to have to rehab, because I'm going to push every single thing, and if you tell me to do 10 reps, I'm going to probably try to do 20, and it's a blessing and a curse, but I thank them every day that they got me back to where I am, and I feel 100% healthy and ready to go.
That's great. That's great to hear. And first and foremost, you're going from one college to the next, so you have to deal with that in itself, and then you throw in an injury on top of it. I can't imagine what the transition period was like. But why KU? Why KU? You decide to enter the transfer portal, which that's a thing now.
Yep. Just
to find the right opportunity. There's a million reasons to why people enter the transfer portal. You can dive into the reason why if you want. But why was Kansas the home for you?
When I entered the portal, Kansas wasn't the first thought. When I entered the portal, coming off of, what happened in Ames, and, just wanting a fresh start. And, I kind of sat there and I was like, you're going to take a risk, entering the portal, and, people might not want you. And, that's just a risk you're going to have to take. And, the phone started ringing, and, all these schools, and, talking to my wife, like, where do you want to live? What, like, she's worried about sunshine and palm trees, and I'm worried about, what type of offense they're running. So that was fun to experience that with her. But when we took our visit to Kansas, we went to a basketball game, and, coming home that night, driving back to my parents' house to stay the night, and she looked at me before we even got out of town and goes, "Yeah, we're coming to Kansas, aren't we?" I was like, "Yeah, pack your bags."
I mean, you get the sunshine, not getting the palm trees.
No, but
you're getting the sunshine.
You get the sunshine. You get the
Sunsets.
humidity.
Come
you
on
get
now.
the beautiful Kansas sunsets.
That's
you also
it.
get the great hunting as well. So, I have to come back for that.
I love it. I would be remiss that if we're going to sit here and talk about the journey of DeShawn Hanika, if I don't bring up Butler Community College,
Oh yeah.
people are going to be angry at me. What was it like going to Butler Community College and being a part of the Grizzlies there?
Butler has a very special place in my heart. They were. I still remember they came into my house I was 17, and Coach McNary and Coach Schaff and Coach Everett, who's now at Pitt State. They were talking to me about, you have all this size and this potential, like you could go be great, and to kind of bet on yourself and see what happens. And I did, and it was a junior college is different. Let's just say that, it's different. I met some great guys down there.
Especially in the Jayhawks, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I met some amazing athletes down there as well. And, that really shaped me into the player that I am now. Put on a lot of good size down there. I think I stepped onto campus at 180.
You're not 180 now.
I left campus at 220. So Coach McNary knew exactly what he was doing with me. He gave me about a week of practice at receiver and pulled me into his office and goes, "All right, here's the deal. You can either be a small time, Division I receiver, or you can go be a big time tight end." And I've always wanted to play in front of the biggest crowds against the best people, so that was an easy decision.
Full circle moment.
Full circle moment.
Coach Ferneri's with you now.
He is. I was so excited when I saw him in the building. It was unbelievable. We still joke about it, And he had a big rule at junior college. None of his players could call him by his name. And, now I feel like we're kind of at that age to where that's just Bryce to me now. We'll go play a round of golf, have a little fun together. And, his wife is amazing, his kids. So I'm very close with them.
To say the least. Yeah, I remember when I saw the news that he wasn't going to be the head football coach, I immediately started, what's going on? Like, where's he going? He's actually going to KU. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. That's really cool. And the fact that you're there and he's a part, just really cool. Last year, didn't get a chance to actually play, but, I just wondered what you would have been like with Jared Casey and thinking about how you would have fit in with that group last year. Of course, you had to watch from the sidelines, but how much did you learn from those individuals? Another Kansas legend there for Jared Casey.
Oh, Jared's a small town legend. He is one of a kind, awesome dude. Trevor Cardell. Mm-hmm. Those two are some of my best friends to this day. The day that I stepped on campus, that first workout, they welcomed me, but at the same time, they knew that we were here to compete, and I feel like that just brought us closer together. And by the time season hit, we were like brothers. I still remember when I went down during practice. Those were the first two guys over to me, and they had more tears in their eyes than I did. So that was very heartwarming for me to know that they cared about me so much. And just Jared and Trevor, they helped me along with the offense, because it's not a very simple offense that we run here. We don't run that traditional signals and pictures offense. We run a very pro-style offense. So having someone like that who's been there all those years, they both really helped me. But on the flip side, I also help them, during games, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what coverage they're playing. This is how he's playing. Try this, try that. So, we kind of all bounced ideas off of each other. And I still talk about them to this day. I still talk to them to this day. They both texted me this morning and said, "Don't you dare embarrass us." So I'm going to try my best not to do that.
Well, you're doing well so far. Of course, having an inside scoop and seeing DeShawn Hanika blasting the pass for me, it helps to know a thing or two about DeShawn Hanika. And you've just matured. You're married now. Like I told you, I feel old. You're like, well, don't say that, because now I feel old. It's like, well, okay, we'll just ignore that aspect then. Jalen Daniels being able to be a part of this office with him, just seeing him, he looks like he's in great shape, and it's hard not to just vibe with him, because his energy level is just, it's off the charts. I don't know too many guys that have that type of energy. with him being out there, with you getting a chance to be a part of the offense, how special is it to play with JD?
JD is one of the reasons I was a big reason I came to KU. I texted him that transfer portal cycle that I was in. I said, hey, are you coming back? And he texted me back within 5 minutes. He said, yeah, I'm coming. And then it was a done deal. So I knew I wanted to play with JD. He's a special guy, like you said. He's a spark plug. He walks into a room and it lights up. And plus, he's a world-class athlete. There's not a throw on the field that he can't make, and there's not a play with his legs that he can't do. So, getting to play with someone like that, and then, he makes you feel welcome. He was a big help to me as well. And, now it's like we finally got a couple practices together where we're both out there healthy, and, the timing that we have, it feels like we've been playing together for the last 4 to 5 years. I know where he expects me to be. He knows what I'm thinking, and, it's a dangerous duo to guard.
Well, you're definitely a tight end, but you keep hearing a lot about Emmanuel Henderson and the type of speed that he can bring. Is the speed for real? I mean, you're shaking your head.
I tell you, I don't know how he's playing football and not running track, because it is. We had sprint workouts, and I lined up next to him and Levi Wentz. We're doing sprint mechanics, and I'm not paying much attention to where I'm at. Usually, I'm with the tight ends. I'm usually out in front, top speed kind of guy. Hitting 20 every once in a while, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to open up this one. I'm going to keep up with these guys, and they took off, and I felt like I was moving, and that gap just kept getting bigger. So those two, especially Emmanuel Henderson, just a freak. He can move, and it's going to be really exciting to watch him just run down the field this year.
Yeah, looking forward to it. What was the first conversation like with Coach Leipold for you?
First conversation was, it was a very mature conversation. I knew what I wanted in a program. He knew what he wanted in a player, and we kind of both clicked like that. We're two no nonsense guys, and he gets very straight to the point. He's very direct with what he wants. I love his approach. He also, his wife Kelly, she's amazing as well. She's very welcoming. She welcomed me and my wife both into here, and Coach Leipold, he's letting me take time out to spend time with my wife and get to our doctor's appointments when we need to for our future newborn son. And I call him the businessman. He's boss man around town, and everyone knows when he's there.
When's the baby coming?
December 3rd.
December 3rd.
December 3rd.
October 7th right here. So baby number 2 for us. Man, you are grown up. Gosh, man. You're sitting here like, we're no nonsense. I'm like, I don't know. I remember DeShawn back in high school. It might have been a little bit different back then.
You ask some of my high school teachers, and they're wondering how I'm still sitting here.
Truly incredible. But, to add to it, growing up, you're so close to Lawrence. You look at the facilities now, a new stadium coming up. Man, I'm sure you're thinking about, man, I remember growing up and going out there and just going, I don't know. And now you're getting brand new playground, if you will. So how special is that too?
The community and of the Jayhawk alumni is unbelievable. The amount of money that they've put into our team, believing in us, wanting to make our experience a whole lot better is unbelievable. And I truly believe that when these facilities are done, that they're going to be some of the best, not even in the conference, in the country. With just how nice they are, how well thought out they are. The stadium is going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see all those rowdy Jayhawk fans in there for that first game, and I feel like it's going to be a loud one.
Who's tougher on you, Coach Lance Leipold or Coach Bill Arnold at Hayden? Who was tougher on you?
Oh.
I'm sure Bill's not even listening to us because we're down in Wichita, but come on, selfishly, I got to ask that question myself.
Bill.
They're pretty similar, I would argue.
They're very similar. I think Coach Leipold's not a huge yeller.
Yeah.
He's more of a bring you in real close, keep his voice low, but he'll let you know what he's thinking. And Bill don't care who he's around, Bill used to drag me down the hallway in high school by my ear, so I'd have to say Bill on that one.
Oh, I can't wait to send this. I would say Coach Veneri, but knowing Coach Veneri, I would imagine that it's a little bit different. Of course, he's younger.
He is younger.
That's what he's got going for him compared to Coach Arnold and Coach Leipold in some ways.
Don't let it fool you. Venerio will still get fired up every now and then. He's still a good old-fashioned ball coach.
Well, DeShawn, it's a real treat to see you, man. I'm glad that you had a chance to fill in. I'm sure the last possible moment you're like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll hop on a plane and come on down, wherever it might be. So I'm glad that you are a part of this, though, because nice little blast from the past for me. Us being in Wichita, people will love hearing more about Butler Community College athletics. So thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck to you this upcoming year. Congratulations on everything, including the newborn, being married, all that stuff. And best of health this upcoming year. That's the number one thing. Best of health this upcoming year.
Thank you so much.